as I was saying, Goodwill, I just think I think it's really good, okay, that we've all come together and we managed to get the Tories out. At least I hope that's what's happened because I think it's really difficult in this moment that we can communicate with each other and hedge trimmer wardrobe, cheese twist, bagel, twat, monkey punch. Hold on, I, Tory scum, get them out. Nigel Farage, um, grifting prick. Starmer, red Tory corporate shill. Monkey tree, basket hat. Miles, bagel, tree stump. Monkey puzzle, tree, bit.
Space.
Discovery, good, maybe. Prodigy, all right, possibly. Hat, tree. Weasel, fetch.
Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Adequate. Our ongoing mission, until we are cancelled and replaced by something far watermelon, to review every hat trick and pool cue existence. Flambéed Shanghai fondue. Fiesta coffee hat.
Twat stand book slump.
Pickle flannel bike.
Beth dog Nova shit.
Emotional barber carpet twit. Dead man ceiling paints.
Beer egg monkey sausage.
Quibble, quibble, quibble. Can you understand me now? Are you sure?
Sausage hat. Card breath.
Okay, just hang on.
Fuck the Tories.
Oh, fuck the Tories!
Fuck the Tories!
Fuck the Tories! Good afternoon,
okay.
good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, I started sounding like someone from Reform. That was a worrying situation.
But you didn't look like you were covered in milkshake, so it looked okay. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, treks and trekkers throughout this fair planet Earth. Welcome to Trekking Up North. I am your host, as ever, Captain Goodwill. And joining me is the delectable Yeesian from the planet It's Science Officer Synoiz! Whoop, whoop.
I'm alive. Just.
You have had a very busy week, have you not?
I've had a very busy week. I just want to say thank you to everyone who was at the nerdy quiz that we had on Saturday last week. It was very good, where you won that very teapot in our lovely teapot auction. Can you just show off how terrible that teapot is?
This is a teapot currently full of martini. Because I have to find a use for it. This is a... hang on. I should have programmed some Price is Right music. Bum, bum. Tell you what, do the bum, ba, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum, bum. Do you know what I mean? The whole like...
Bum, ba, bum, 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 ba, bum,
this teapot
bum,
is
bum,
expertly
bum,
crafted
bum,
by some
bum,
delusional
bum,
heroin
bum,
addict in some crack den in South Bank. It depicts a fisherman, but the fishing hook is rather bent and it's not looking at anything, and the lid is an actual fish. Some might be wondering, what is on the other side? I will show you. It's the same guy, but he's stood up, eager to catch whatever it is. It is truly the stuff of nightmares.
That
Yeah.
is, I just remember that being my favorite one out of the teapots that we auctioned off because none of it makes sense. Like, there's no fixing it. The actual shape of everything is hideous.
Speaking of
Oh
hideous,
no, don't get it, don't show it, don't show it.
here we have a bear obviously defecating in a barrel to the sounds of cheerses.
Cheers is like I love how
Cheerses.
irrationally angry at the nerdy quiz that we had on Saturday at Geek Retreat in Sunderland. Basically, how irrationally angry Kelly got because Kelly is a teacher, and Kelly was like, "Why is there an apostrophe in Cheers?" That actually makes me very angry as someone who loves, and the fact it's part of the design. So every single one of those teapots has that mistake on it. It's so bad.
Finally, though, I would like to thank all the creeps of Nerdy Up North for delivering this magnificent deep AF teapot, because this is the stuff of dreams. Look at it. Believe in magic. Look at the tail. Look at the fine craftsmanship of the horn. Look at its face. Look at this.
Yeah. The effort they had to go to get you that teapot after you missed out on it in the original auction. It was
I missed out because you failed to hear my bid.
To be fair though, I'm glad I failed to hear your bid because
It
otherwise
was a ludicrous amount.
my brother would have just kept going. That's the problem. I was kind of like going, look, he's gonna win this one. We just got to work out how much money we can get out of him, basically.
It
yeah.
yeah, it was yes, I am extremely grateful for my unicorn teapot. Thank you very much. However, for the rest of them, no.
Yes. So what we're doing is next Saturday, not the one coming up now, the 13th of July, we're having another Nerdy Up North quiz.
What?
At Geek Retreat in Sunderland, 5 till 8 on the 13th of July. So if you're in the northeast of England and you fancy testing your nerdy knowledge with a slight horror twinge, I'm thinking, then please come along and help us raise some more wonderful money for charity. There we go. That's my bit.
And as ever,
what are we doing here, Goodwill?
Well, we are reviewing Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 5, Babel. That is why I am wearing my TNG uniform. And as we know, with my TNG uniform, it constantly rides up, thusly, leading me to pull it down, thusly.
Oh,
And as
you're
we
gonna
all
need
know,
a bigger teapot.
and as we all know, every time I have to pull this uniform down, everyone who's watching this needs to take an alcoholic beverage drink.
Go on,
Because-
sip your beverage.
Them's are the rules. So get your teapots at the ready, everybody, because this shit is about to go wild. Me and Synoiz, if you haven't noticed already, are doing this recorded because we are two very, very busy gentlemen. We have a very hectic schedule in our lives. So
I will be performing. I think it's up north, I think somewhere, but I will be performing at Holm Festival at this very moment, which is quite wonderful. So it's a lovely little kind of a stoner festival, and it's always just so wonderful and chill. We did it last year as part of the drag show, and we're doing it again. So yeah, should be quite a relaxing weekend. But I should probably be very, very drunk at this point.
And I am recording many, many podcasts and celebrating the fact that the Tories are out of government. And if they're not, and this video's aged very poorly, we shall slingshot the adequate round the sun until Keir Starmer gets it right. So we are here to review Babel from DS9 Season 1. You sent me a voice note today because me and Synoiz have both watched it at exactly the same time today. And he sent me a voice note today and he went, "This is fucking brilliant, and this is where DS9 found its legs." And I agree. This is wonderful, and it was absolutely brilliant to go back to early Deep Space Nine, early season Deep Space Nine, to see all these new characters still trying to form their relationships and still trying to establish how they are. Like, this is where I feel we see the change in Kira Nerys a little bit, where she's gone from being very cocky and very arrogant to sort of like, I will utilize my vast amount of balls to get
Mm.
the job done, which we see later on in this episode.
I it's very much like this is the problem is they're so important for what they do plot wise that we can't ignore the first three episodes, like
Yeah,
Emissary Part One and Two, and whatever the third one is. But it's the idea of like this is where people should start because they're not good episodes, but this effectively is where they just go, oh, this is DS9.
yeah,
And I'm going to admit, while I do think that Emissary is probably the worst opener for a Trek show, like I think it probably is. I think it's probably my least favorite opener, like for all shows. But DS9 finds its feet quicker than
yeah,
all of the other shows because
yeah.
obviously TNG we talk about like the first series and we're like, oh, maybe the second series is also a bit weird kind of thing.
Mm.
But DS9, I'd say from Babel onwards is just absolute perfection, and the first series has some absolute crackers in it, like such as an episode I'd really love to do, Duet, which is equally fantastic to this one.
I
But
will.
yeah, but
Yeah,
like you're saying though, we find these characters find their way and we go, oh, this is what they are. Such as Kira being Kira finally going like, oh, I actually trust the crew and I actually do trust Cisco and I do want to be here and I'm going to use all of my anger and rage to help this crew and to help our mission kind of thing, rather than basically being a brat like she is in the first two episodes.
the brief synopsis of this episode is a virus that causes its victims to speak in gibberish breaks out on Deep Space Nine, and Cisco assigns Kira the job of finding an antidote. And
Mm.
for me, this is part Kira, part Miles O'Brien. Because for the first part of the episode, we get to see an overworked, exhausted Miles O'Brien out of his not out of his depth skill wise, but out of his depth on the sheer amount of work that needs to be done to this old
Mm.
station. And we maintain to this day that Miles O'Brien is the greatest Starfleet officer who ever lived, who
Mhm.
had the unfortunate accident of marrying Keiko. But we see he's overworked, and he's getting very snappy and very stressed.
Yeah.
Um, but
I mean,
essentially, the
it's brilliant. Like, and it's the fact of no one appreciates him.
no,
He's basically he's constantly run ragged, fixing all this stuff around the station. He's literally just managed to get a lot of systems online after the Cardassians like blew everything up practically
yeah,
or tore everything out after they abandoned the station. And he's basically just gone, hey, this is all written in like code and using technology that I'm not familiar with. And he's had to rewire an entire space station.
yeah,
And it's ludicrous. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, could you just do this? Could you just do this? And he's basically IT support at whatever company you work for.
yeah,
And we get a wonderful scene where he's trying to help people get out of it who are trapped in an airlock. He's trying to get people out. And then he gets, you know, basically sort of confronted by a ship captain called Yaheel, who's
mm,
basically going, hey, you haven't fixed my ship yet, and I need to leave because I've got a delivery that needs to be done, and like only thinking about himself. And yeah, and O'Brien's like, oh, look, I'm doing my best. And he says, and the captain says, your best, Mr. O'Brien, hardly seems good enough.
oh, we've all been there.
Yeah, and that's it. And you're just like, you fucking space Karen. I mean, we
Yeah,
haven't got actual space Karen yet, so he's like an emissary to the space Karen.
yeah.
But
He's
the
he's he's the he's the space Sharon to
yeah,
space Karen, and so this is, yeah, like this is the fourth or fifth episode, depending
mm,
on if MSU was a 2 hour or two-parter for you.
yeah,
So the station is still very much in disrepair when it comes to the Federation still trying to find its feet on the station, get rid of the old Cardassian booby traps that which we see in other episodes, and just basically making sure that the Federation tech talks with this old Cardassian station.
mm,
And we see that, the Federation, this is a frontier. I mean, Deep Space Nine is a frontier town.
mm,
So they are right on the very limits of Federation space, and all they have is Chief O'Brien, who is
mm,
by no means like a chief engineer by any rank. This is like his first solo, not officer, but like first solo. He is in charge.
Yeah,
He is
commission
the
basically.
first solo commission. He's in charge. He's an engineer because he's never Chief O'Brien famously never went to Starfleet Academy. He has earned his credit through field promotions, through field commendations, and everything like that. So when he becomes chief of DS9, he's essentially promoted from the Enterprise to this Cardassian space station, and he is, like Synoiz has just said, very much single-handedly trying to rewire this entire. And this is like a mile, 2 mile long space
Yeah.
station that he is trying to essentially make talk with Federation Tech, and he is overworked, he is exhausted, and when he fixes one thing, three other things go wrong.
I mean, what is it? We have it where immediately after he's got berated, Dax calls him up and says, "Hey, have you got a moment? We've all been here. It's like, hey, have you got a moment? There's a problem with my quarters." And so he goes to the quarters, and there's this horrendous screeching in Dax's quarters. So obviously O'Brien does the sensible thing, and he goes in, and he turns the Bjork album off, and
Mm.
then it's all sorted. So basically, it's the idea of everyone has a problem, like, and desperately wants O'Brien. And then we get O'Brien on the bridge, and Kira's got a problem, and then Cisco gets something from the replicator, and it doesn't taste right, and he sort of goes, "Oh, what the hell's this?" And
You need to
O'Brien
use a
just has,
teapot for
well,
all
that's
your
it.
drinking.
But O'Brien just has a rant, and I love this. It's the fact of like O'Brien, and we've been there. Like, if you've
We've
been
all
at your
been there.
job long enough,
Yeah.
there's bits where it doesn't matter if it's the big boss. You have a day where you're just like, "Oh, great, I guess I'll just do everything. Well, wonderful. Let's just not do our jobs properly." Everyone has had one of those moments where you just snap and you just go, "For fuck's sake." And that's what we get from O'Brien, and I love it. And obviously, Cisco's just standing there like, okay, he needs a holiday. And I just really liked it, to be fair. But yeah.
It's yeah. So he fixes the replicators.
Yeah, there's replicators that are broken on the command level. So he
Yeah.
fixes them. He fixes them. There's, and then something weird happens. There's like a flux, like a flash of lightning or something, or electricity in the replicator, and then he sort of ignores it and then goes off drinking the coffee that he replicated for himself, because he does drink coffee during the day. Heiko, you don't know your husband at all. Um, that's a random reference to another episode there. But yeah, but then what we have is wow, it's actually, I've forgotten when the cold open is at this point.
The
Oh,
cold.
oh yeah, that's what we see. We have him walk away from the replicator with his coffee, and then it zooms into the replicator and shows that there's some kind of device in
Yeah.
the internals of the replicator that's doing something suspicious. And then
Yeah.
it's the cold open. Yeah, there we go.
I like how after the cold open we see Jazzy Dax and Kira walking on the promenade, and Dax is commenting on the looks that she is getting from the male crew and civilians on the promenade, and she's like, I can't get used to that. All the essentially the stares from men, because Dax is still getting used to being a woman again.
Well, I love it, like where she just kind of points out like, "Oh, it's so strange being a woman again. I haven't been a woman in like 80 years, but and but it's like, and Kira's like, "Oh, that's weird," and she's like, "No, I'm enjoying it." and and I think it's good though. Like, what I'd say about this episode, you were saying early that it could be like a Kira episode or an O'Brien episode. It's not. All the episodes that we've talked about in the last couple of months or whatever, we've talked about A plots and B plots. I think this is our first example in a long while of just a single plot. There are no
Hmm.
subplots in this
Oh yeah,
episode,
yeah,
and everyone gets to shine. That's
yeah,
what makes it so good. That's what makes it the beginning of DS9, because everyone has a bit to shine in this episode and a bit to sort of progress their character in this episode, rather than oh, you just don't see that character this week, so we don't hear anything. Like, and here
yeah.
we get like Dax talking about, like, oh, it's strange being female again and whatnot, but also that she's, a party girl and she's willing to sort of enjoy herself at Quarks and stuff, whereas Kira is a bit more pent up.
Yeah, because we see what we haven't mentioned is that business is quite slow at Quarks at the moment because all the
Mm.
replicators are down. So Odo
And he's waiting for O'Brien to fix him.
yeah.
But
So
O'Brien.
Odo sort of lets slip like, oh, that's funny. All the replicators on the command level have been fixed, and Quark
Yeah.
being Quark has to double check this, so he hacks in to the command level checks and finds this, and then
I have to say,
suddenly-
I love it. I love this bit of technology because this is what we see in this episode of like where we see how the computers work in DS9, and it's you know how
Cardassian
you
computers. Yeah,
well
yeah,
yeah that's it. You know how like you love the ships and how ships and stuff work and whatnot.
yeah,
I kind of really like how the weird technology works, and in DS9 because it's all technically Cardassian,
yeah,
it's all done through data rods. So
yeah.
it's this idea of the way he hacks it is he basically takes away a panel and it's got loads of tubes with like sort of spaces for rods in. And then just under the bar, he's just got this big bowl of like the data rods or whatever that I don't know. This one's like, oh, this is level 2 clearance, this is level 4 clearance, but he plugs them in and then the computer goes like, oh, cool. And I don't know. I like this. I really like this tactile approach to computing. Like it's
Yeah.
not like in other stuff where it's like, oh, he just types loads of stuff in or whatever. He's like, no, I will hack this using effectively specific USB sticks, I guess.
Yeah, because that's how it works. It's very much like Star Wars, where like their security clearance is those little pen things that are in their jackets, and they're essentially rods themselves. So when they ask for security clearance, they do the same thing. They take the rod out, put it into the computer. It's very much how Cardassian systems works. When he's trying to check which replicators are being fixed, he has to enter the correct level 5 stick because he can't just. It's one of those where if it's a level 2 and he enters a level 5, it won't work. It has to be the correct rod for the correct clearance. So he finds
and
out,
he really shouldn't have them, but
No,
he
he
does
absolutely
because
shouldn't.
he's Quark.
But he's been there for years and befriended all these people that he's just accidentally had these slip into, onto his counter. But we see that moments later when Jadzia and Kira are talking, suddenly business is booming at Quark's, and to celebrate he offers them free pudding, and Kira, being quite uptight, politely declines, and Jazzier's just like, hell yeah. And
Yeah, I'll have free pudding.
Free cake, I'm in. But yeah, we then see when we're in ops, Miles O'Brien fixes the replicator for Cisco. Cisco tastes the coffee and it's fine. And then they go on about Jake being in Keiko School, and Chief, my son really loves being in Keiko School despite all the whippings. And this is the first instance of Miles starting to talk gibberish.
Yeah.
But we pay it no mind.
And it happens in the middle of a sentence where he says something and it's gibberish, and then Cisco's like, what was that? And then he says it again and it's proper. And it's like, and it's a very slow progressive thing, but we do kind of go like, that is odd.
But we do find that eventually the Chief starts talking gibberish. He starts not making sense when he's speaking to Kira.
Are we sure he's not just talking the Reform Party manifesto?
No, because that's just...
Oh, because they're real words, what he's saying.
The real words, and they're not done by someone who looks like a gammon. But he starts talking gibberish and he starts making no sense, and Kira doesn't know what's going on, and then the whole crew start looking at him, and he gets more and more visibly agitated by it, and he's visually he understands what he's saying within his head, but his gob, he's not articulating those words,
and I don't believe he can understand what other people are saying. So everyone else seems to be talking gibberish to him, and he's talking normally to them. Now, I want to talk about this, okay? I know we're doing a synopsis at the minute, but it's like, do you think this was scripted, or do you think they just told the actors to talk gibberish? Or did they have to learn this insane dialogue?
I don't know, because we improvised that bit at the beginning, and that was single-handedly the hardest thing I have ever done on Trekkin North. Where
it's
I was
really difficult. I said
tree
my room. Like loads.
Yeah, I was looking around my room and I was like, bike, flannel, ceiling, because I'm just looking at things in my room corpse, but it's really stop moving, you're dead. It's really hard to think of that. So I do think it was baked into the script. But he's sent to sick bay, and the doctor diagnoses him with some type of aphasia. But he's got the symptoms of aphasia, but he has not had anything to predicate this disease. They don't know.
Like Bashir basically says, hey, this could happen due to head trauma or like having a stroke. And he's had absolutely none of those. And it doesn't make sense how this actually happened.
Yeah. But very quickly, like even in sickbay, he's trying to type on a pad, and everything he writes on the pad also does not make sense. So it's essentially affecting his speech processing, and then just how he can formulate words.
And the fascinating thing here is it's not gibberish what he's saying. It's just the words and the connections are wrong. Because this scene here in sickbay is quite fascinating because he says something, and then the next thing he says is like a reworded version of that. Well, so it basically says that, hey, this word is actually this word, and this word is actually this word. And the actors kind of kept that in mind. So the script basically said, like, hey, if you're trying to say this and the words have been flipped to be different words, then when you rephrase the sentence in the hope that it's easier to understand, you would use the same nonsense words in a different order. And I just thought it was just very, very clever.
I'm reading what he wrote down on the pad here, and it's Flame the Dark True, Saltway Link, Complete Strike, Union, Limits Victory, Frosted Wake, Simple Hesitation. I mean, it's a bitchin' poem, but
yes,
it's
Yoko Ono would kill for lyrics like that.
Yoko Ono would just kill, but it's
I do quite like though that at the end he's just like simple hesitation.
She shot John Lennon. Sorry, what?
Oh no, you've got the aphasia virus and you're talking nonsense.
Where was she in August 1997?
But even more importantly, who cares? But
Mercedes-Benz. But then we see Jadzia Dax in Ops. She starts to get affected by
she's
the
talking.
aphasia.
Well, the thing is, she's talking, and then she starts talking gibberish, and they're all sitting there at the same time. And obviously, Bashir kind of goes, "Okay, this is insane. Like, you don't just casually develop aphasia, and yet we managed to witness her doing it in the middle of a sentence." So he basically goes, "Hey, actually, there's something seriously wrong here." And I kind of love how I actually really like Bashir in this episode. Like, I'm not a massive Bashir fan normally, but I think he's great in this episode.
It's Bashir as a good doctor, and as you know, we'd currently had like 5 years of Beverly Crusher. It makes a refreshing change to see a competent medical professional on Star Trek.
Another death. Oh well, time to light my candle.
Hey! Candle slag.
But I quite like it though, because the reason I like Bashir here is because, like I was saying, the episode personifies the characters perfectly. Like, all the characters act exactly how they are. So what we get with Bashir is we get Bashir being like, whoa, this is a terrifying situation. This is really, really difficult. But it's absolutely fascinating. And I'm totally enamored by, you know, how this virus works, and it's so clever. And then he's like, oh, whoever made this must have been a genius. I'd love to meet him, kind of thing. And it's this bizarre thing of going, this is a very serious situation, and yet Bashir is still kind of fanboying about, like, going, oh, isn't science amazing? And I kind of love that.
He's got that young idealism still within him, and because he's on the frontier of medicine, and on the frontier, obviously the frontier, he's still very much excited by these new challenges and these new things that no one else knows about. And he's very much like, this is brilliant the way it's being done. Yes, it's affecting the crew and no one knows what's causing it or the cure, but this is fantastic. This is, you know, this is great fun.
And it's wonderful that they managed to do a plot so succinctly, but also managed to develop the characters so well in this way, you know, like by putting little bits like that about, you know, for Bashir.
Yeah, and what I love about it is he is like quite excited about this very serious possible epidemic occurring on the station, but he still has that amazing medical competence where he's like, I am excited, this is new, and I would love to meet who design is, because it does not look natural. This is very much an artificial virus that is that is spreading, but he still has that amazing professionalism to be like, we need to find a cure, but we need to understand it, and to understand it we need to find out where it came from and stuff like that. And when we see, like, I know this is one continuous plot, but this is like the minor B plot that is resolved and then is merged with the A plot, where we see obviously Quark's bar is booming. Cisco has ordered a quarantine of the station. No one leaves. Everyone is confined to quarters, and yet the bar is booming. And Odo comes in and he's like, there is a quarantine going on. Why are people here? And Quark, being Quark, is like, the people need sanctuary. They need reassurance and comfort.
I love it. He's like, hey, I'm pretty sure I told all things to close down on the promenade. And Quark's like, except for all essential services. And I'd say that this is like an essential service. And Odo's just like,
how many times during the pandemic were people in our roles gone, I'm essential, and you're like, no,
Tricia,
not. I deal with complaints for a credit card. That is not essential. People saving lives is essential. And when a company provides you with a statement to give to the police when you are pulled over, that means you are not essential, because essentially, they gave us a huge tangent, but I don't care. They gave us a note which was like, I don't know if you've ever seen Parks and Recreation with Ron Swanson. Like, do you have a permit? Yes, I do. It's a piece of paper going, I could do what I want, Ron. This is essentially what my old company did, where they just gave us this letter to have and keep. So when we were pulled over, we could present it to go, please, can you excuse Michael? He is essential because he makes us money. Thank you. And this is very much like, Quark is very much that business during the Panny D going, I am essential because I deliver a service. What service do you deliver? Yes. The service of making me rich. But obviously, he wants, like, Odo wants to know why his business booming. Oh, well, the replicators have been fixed. How did these replicators get fixed without O'Brien? Rom fixed them. And this is great, because this is before Rom was established as like this terrific engineer.
Yeah.
So we see Odo get sus, and I think we might as well get this subplot out of the way straight away. Odo gets sus, so decides to follow Quark and find out what is going on. And we just see Quark, and I love this whole scene. We see Quark with a little dinner tray, little dinner trolley going down the corridor, goes into this vacant quarters.
He uses a device to unlock the quarters, so he's basically breaking in.
Goes into these vacant quarters, immediately orders a cocktail, and the dinner trolley turns into Odo, because, spoiler alert, Odo's a shapeshifter. And I love that Quark turns around. He's not shocked, but he just goes, I wondered why the wheel was squeaky. I love that.
But it's like, you know how I'm saying how every character is perfect in this episode because they all act exactly how it is. The relationship between, like, the sort of frenemies relationship between Odo and Quark in this is top notch. Like, it is absolutely amazing. Because, like,
and it comes through later in the episode as well.
Yeah, that's it. Like, what is it? And Quark's just like, oh yeah, that's it. And Odo's like, why didn't you just ask to use the replicators? Why have you broken in? And Quark says, old Ferengi saying, never ask when you can take.
Rule of acquisition. It is literally, I believe it's a rule of acquisition.
I don't know if it's a rule of acquisition, but
a canon check.
But it's the idea of, like, but then Quark's like, oh, how did you figure it out? And then Odo's like, oh, you claimed Rom fixed your replicators. Rom's an idiot. You know, it's just like,
okay.
It's such a good line.
Hang on. Oh, what rule is it? Hang on. The rule The rule is she can touch your lobes, but she can never touch your latinum. Right, here we go. Rule of acquisition number 52. Never ask what you can take. I'm sorry, but rule of acquisition number 40. She can touch your lobes, but never your latinum. Boys. Why is it linked 4 rules of acquisition to that one? Never confuse wisdom with luck. I love that. Right. But yeah, like, he leaves the quarters and he's just like, good idea, I'll fire on.
Yeah.
But that sort of then blends into the main plot because they quickly find out, obviously, with more and more people getting ill and the promenade being empty, especially when we see Jake on his own. And we see Cisco finding him after looking for an hour. We see that more and more people are quickly becoming ill, and it becomes more apparent that this infection is spreading via the replicators. And it's spreading so fast because Quark was using one of the fixed replicators on the command level to, fulfill all of his food and drink deliveries, which has then helped the virus spread a lot quicker throughout the station. But then we get into the Kira centric, shall we say, really loosely, Kira centric segment of the episode, because they know it's coming from the replicators, and they also know that the virus has become airborne, I believe.
That's it. Well, we have a scene between Cisco and Bashir where it's like they're talking about it, and then Bashir basically goes, "Oh, it's become airborne," and Odo tells them that it's through the replicators because and it's quite clever. Like, we'll go into it a bit later, but it's basically the idea of, because Quark's been doing this and giving food from this replicator to all of his patrons, it basically means that it's infected the entire ship.
Mutated.
And what happens is, when enough people have a virus, that it can start to mutate when it gets passed around so much, and it becomes airborne. So basically Bashir goes, even if you didn't eat at Quark's or eat from this replicator, you're now going to have it, which is absolutely terrifying.
It's essentially when COVID was just a made-up disease, and then suddenly we got 5G. It mutated to an excellent signal. But they want to know. Let's have a look.
I think the next thing we get is...
No, the virus is mutated, so it's become airborne. So now everyone is infected because it's adapted and mutated, and now it's airborne. And
so it puts a terrifying, oh shit, we're all going to get this virus, basically.
Yeah, no matter what.
And we're all not going to be able to speak soon.
Yeah. So they are searching the replicators to find out what is causing the virus. Like, where did the virus originate from? What has originally caused this virus? And Kira finds, which is in one of the Jeffries tubes. I don't know what a Cardassian would call it. A gull tube, a Ducat hole.
A Ducat hole. I'm inside that Ducat hole.
Springtime for Ducat and Cardassia. But Kira finds a device, like strapped to one of the replicators, like hooked into the primary, one of the primary power sources of a replicator, and immediately the station crew thinks this is some sort of Cardassian device because it uses the same power source as most Cardassian devices. But the questions are then raised, like, why would they have such a device in the replicators? Like, why would they have something that would compromise them?
And it's kind of cool because, like, what Kira points out is, like, oh, it's got a Diveridian core. Diveridian core basically says, hey, this is Cardassian technology, it has to be, because it uses that. But obviously they're like, well, why would they ever put this in? Like, was it put in by them to hurt us after they'd given the station up? But then they go, hey, actually it's so old that it must have been put in when the actual station first launched, effectively.
Yeah, so I think it's Bashir that determines, like, the thing is actually 18 years old and
Yeah.
dates back to when the station was constructed. And the people who actually constructed the station were Bajorans. So it's heavily suspected that at the time, the Bajoran, I don't know if we could say the T word, terrorists, shall we say, screw it,
Well,
demonetized.
DS9 does.
But it's the fact that it was planted at the time of construction by Bajoran terrorists, and and presumably it was made and placed aboard the station by the resistance to essentially do what it's doing now.
But
to
here's the
crew.
problem, though. Only to the crew, only to the actual higher ups. So the intention of this virus was never ever to
Because it's on the
infect
command level of the
everyone.
station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was only meant to attack the Cardassian commanders of the crew. But because of Quark, everyone has been infected, and to the point where it can mutate to be airborne. So it's one of these things of it's a comedy of errors, effectively.
Yeah, but then we get the revelation from Bashir that Cisco's son Jake is now one of the affected by this aphasia, and it becomes quickly apparent with Miles O'Brien, who was like patient zero of this whole situation, that his situation has gone from bad to worse, and that if they don't find a way to reverse what is happening, if they don't get an antidote, people will start dying within 12 hours.
Which is absolutely terrifying, and I don't know if the episode needs this kind of impetus in it, but it does work. But the idea itself of not being able to communicate and being able to spread it to other people is scary enough. But then it kind of ups the stakes by being like, hey, you can also die from this. But I do like though that it's basically like we say with we get to see everyone at their best, and we get to see what everyone's characters are. This is like the defining, this is this character, this is this character. And here we get to see Cisco being very, very emotional with Jake. Like, because that is Cisco's character. He is a father. And it's wonderful that he gets these little concerns and little relationship bits with his son, Jake, which I think are great.
But we also start to see Kira as we know and love her in this, where she's essentially
essentially
the spirit of Sean Connery has infected me. Fuck you, Sean.
Imagine if that was the aphasia virus. It just made you talk like Sean Connery.
Captain's log.
It's like Sean Connery trying to do accents in Highlander.
Captain's log, I should be a fucking admiral. Up Periscope. But we see Kira come into her own here, where she's tasked with finding the creator of the virus. However, when she is searching for, I believe it is Deacon Elig.
Deacon Elig.
We find out that he has died. And that though his death and through his death certificate.
And this is what's wonderful, the lore about this, like it just adds so much to it so early on in the show, where basically it's like her just being like, oh, he was sent to a Cardassian prison, and that was 8 years ago, and nobody's heard anything from him then. So we assume he's dead, but there are no records. So she has to keep going around the houses trying to find stuff out. And then eventually, after a lot of searching and a lot of contacting like various contacts from her different resistance cells, who are now in like proper jobs of authority.
Yeah, they've been repatriated back to Bajor after being in these prison camps. Yeah,
and it's quite cool, like the fact that Kira has this massive like sort of network of people that she still knows from the resistance, and she eventually finds out, oh, actually he is dead. However, the person who signed his death certificate was his lab assistant, Cermak Wren. Yeah. And she goes, okay, lab assistant. Well, that's almost as good, I guess. He must have been there to help,
But he absolutely refuses. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's got nothing to do with me. Goodbye.
She just cold calls him and just goes, hi, I'd like to speak to you about a virus that's happened. She does the worst job of leading into like this question, because it's like she just goes like, hey, there's a big virus on our ship. What do you know about it? He's like, I don't know anything, and then hangs up on her. And
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, you do not hang up on Kira Nerys. You do
Well, we
not hang
find
up on
out
Kira Nerys.
we find out how good Space Karen deals with people terminating their calls, because I think it's one of possibly the best scenes in DS9 when she does this.
I think it's the sort of thing of like this is only the fourth or fifth, depending on like
Yeah,
how
yeah,
it's shown, episode of DS9, and we get to see the wonderful that it's a different ball game to TNG and the original series, where
yeah,
we have it like, people complain about In the Pale Moonlight, and you're like, that's kind of all of DS9 is them going, hey, we've got to make really difficult and morally questionable decisions for the greater good. And
yeah.
so we basically get Kira being like, yep, let's just take crazy risks,
But without those
but she's not
episodes,
Starfleet.
yeah, but
She's not Starfleet.
without those characters and without those episodes, Star Trek would go stale, and it would not push the
Yeah.
envelope in a way that it has over the last 50 to 60 years. And you don't want to go stale, because that's how you get Star Wars. But
Are you suggesting that the latest Star Wars isn't brand new and innovative and a massive success?
yes, but we see come at me, bro. We see Quark, who's still unaffected by the phage, and he's like, "Ah, it must be my strong Ferengi genes, my immune system." And Odo, being Odo, is just like, "I'm warning you, Quark," and he's just like, "There's no one there," and he's like, "Don't be a naughty boy." Essentially, that's all it is. He's just the guy. Oh, do you know what it reminded me of? Hogan's Heroes, where it's just like, "I'm watching you," like Colonel Klink, "I'm watching you."
That's it. That's Odo, and
Yeah.
it's this what it's so perfect. Both of these characters are so perfect. I mean, it's literally we have a scene where they've had to tear up loads of crew quarters in order to make a ward to keep all of the sick people in.
Yeah.
And Quark is in there and he's talking gibberish. He's there basically just going like, what is it? Me hungry. You give me gold, and it's like he's trying to fake having aphasia so he can be in the ward, but he's also he's working out whether the people in the ward actually have aphasia or whether they're just faking it because they owe him money. So he's
Yeah.
basically just being an absolute dickhead to everyone there, and it's the most Quark thing in the world. But
Essentially, he's being like our former leaders, where that even if you are dead, they will be at your grave going, "You kind of owe us back taxes." But then we see,
priorities.
priorities. Fuck the Tories. But we see, we're gonna have to get rid of these stickers when they're voted out. We'll have to sign these and auction them off at the next quiz. And here we have item number 69. A autographed "Fuck the Tories" sticker signed by Science Officer Synoiz, as used on episode 67 of Trekking Up North. Do I hear 2 pence?
That's pretty generous.
3, get out. I'm not having another teapot. But we see that Bashir becomes he succumbs to the virus eventually when he's trying to do his research, and because the computer doesn't understand him, the computer abandons the research. So literally the one man on the station that is able to try and solve this mystery has now succumbed to this aphage. Is it aphage? I can't get it right.
Aphasia.
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 But my favourite scene of the episode is we see Kira Nerys in a runabout. Look right there. We see her in the Rio Grande, just hightailing it to Bajor, calling up some Sir Mac Ren again, and he's like, contact Sir Mac Ren at this institute, and he's like, "I've already told you I'm not going to talk. I'm just making sure you're in your office." Beams him the fuck aboard and just hightails it back to DS9 with the guise of, "You can't go back because I am infected and so are you." This is the best Space Karen move, the good Space Karen move, where it's just like, I love this because this is the Kira we know and love, not the one that's constantly challenging and fighting against Cisco. So this is like Kira in charge and going, if they refuse to deal with it, I will make them deal with it by legitimately kidnapping their ass, infecting them with a deadly virus, so then they have to deal with the shit that they created. It's like, this is the best way of going to someone. You must deal and suffer the actions of the consequences of your actions. And it's brilliant. Next Generation would never do this.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. This defines DS9 so well, this episode.
Yeah.
But I do like though that like she does this. Like she basically breaks I don't know how many laws. Like it is kidnap effectively.
It is.
Like
yeah.
it is. And she does this, and she's like, okay, cool. You know, like, I've teleported you over here, and I'm infected with the virus.
It's a hell of a risk
You'll
as
have
well.
it too. Yeah, but the first thing he says is, I was never involved in making the virus. He did that before I met him. I wasn't there. Like, you know, and it's like, Jesus Christ. Like, this guy might be, like, the thing is, this guy effectively is entirely innocent. He wasn't actually involved in making the virus at all. And it's like, oh, and she's like, well, you're infected now, and this is kind of your line of work, so
sort your shit.
Yeah,
so exactly.
Help us out, you know.
And I love it because
it's so bad, but I love it. You know.
What about the whole Jahil thing, the Captain Jahil? Because he does approach Cisco.
It's difficult. I think the whole thing is when we refer to him as Karen earlier, I think it's very astute. Like it's the fact of like, you know, everything is, you know, every problem in the world is a question of scale and context. Yeah. And it's the fact of this is a captain who has perishable goods on his ship. Basically, he only has a couple of days to deliver them. Otherwise, they'll spoil. Is it space melons?
Space melons.
Otherwise, they'll spoil and he gets nothing from the shipment. So he's massively out of pocket and he needs to pay his crew and everything like that. And you're like, that is a very real concern for him individually as a business. And then what happens is but he basically is a massive dick about it because basically there's problems with his ship. He's asked O'Brien to fix it. O'Brien is snowed under, hasn't had time to get onto it. And then when the virus breaks out, everyone gets basically sort of confined to quarters, or if they're external, they get confined to their ships. So basically, but they're not allowed to leave. And he's basically going, but I'm not infected, so why can't I leave? Like, you know, I've been here, I need to do this, I'll lose money. And he is basically only concerned about himself and his problem.
But
and he's not taking in the bigger picture of going...
He also admits to Cisco, I don't want to get ill.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, it becomes more apparent. Like, you know, at first he tries to justify his need because he's got perishable goods and he will lose out on business, etc., etc. But then when he's having that one-on-one conversation with Cisco, he's like, I don't want to get infected. And Cisco's like, you don't have a choice because you might have it.
You probably already are,
Yeah. And then we see he just absolutely ignores all reason and logic and tries to break free from the station's clamps. But inadvertently, go on.
He tries to drive his ship away while it's still clamped into the docking bay, like a fucking idiot. Well, assuming, they have to let me go if I sort of try to drive out. They'll have to let me go and I'll get away. And basically they go, okay, yeah, we do. He's right. We do have to let him go because otherwise he'll tear the ship apart. But then because he does it, they just go, oh, actually, they've all buckled now and the clamps can't actually be removed.
Yeah, so because he's tried to get away, he's essentially warped the lock. So it's now impossible to automatically release them. And because his engines are overheating and he can't shut them off, there is a threat that it's going to take out half the bloody docking ring because of his, you know, his selfish, shall we say, selfish need to escape and, you know, to just get away from the virus.
And it is, and it's yeah, when Cisco's plan was basically, oh well, to let him go and then get him with a tractor beam and be like, okay, we'll hold you with a tractor beam then, it's like
But all the way
you're not
through
getting
this,
away.
we then see Cisco, who is like one of the last ones standing, gets affected by the aphasia, leaving only Odo in charge of operations, who was already apprehensive.
Well, we got a wonderful scene with Odo being like, I am not a commander, like
Yeah.
going, I can't do any of this
I
stuff.
am not a manager. I can't
Yeah.
manage. And
If
but
only
then
more managers would say that.
if only more managers were competent. But then we see then we see only Odo is left, and he sends out a hail throughout the station. He's like, anyone who is not infected by this.
And it's wonderful. He's so worried. You can see the
Yeah.
fear in his voice of just being like, anyone who's not infected, come up to the ops, please.
But the only person that is left, it's Quark. And I love that even though there's like threat of like dying from the disease, half the station being blown up, Quark still wants to negotiate terms of payment for helping Odo.
Yeah, like Odo's like sort of, what, you want to help? And he's like, not for free.
Yeah.
we can talk about payment later, and it's like, and it's a wonderful bit about Quark because it's effectively the idea of Quark does have a heart of gold. Like, like we over DS9 we go, hey, Rom isn't a very good Ferengi. Clearly isn't a very good Ferengi, and Nog is more human than Ferengi. Quark wants to be a good Ferengi. He's aiming to be a good Ferengi, but he is actually corrupted by Federation values and stuff, where it's the fact of he does actually have a heart of gold, and we see it a lot when the situation is bad. So here he is actually putting out and helping, but masking it by being like sort of, okay, for
but
profit.
here's the thing, like, we say he's been like corrupted by Federation values, and there are two sides to this, because for Ferengi that is a very negative thing to be corrupted by Federation values. But from a Federation point of view, it shows that this person who has been, so culturally, so engineered by the culture to believe in uber capitalism by the Ferengis, that there is still a capacity to not change but adopt other people's cultures and values and understandings, and learn to walk the line between both Ferengi and Federation idealism, ideal values, and everything like that. And we see with Quark, through the decades, even all the way up to Lower Decks and Picard and everything like that, where he has made a success for it. It's the same with Rom, where Rom is not a good Ferengi. He is more Bajoran than he is Ferengi.
Well, this is the joy of Trek. The joy of Trek of basically all of the races and the cultural significance of all the races and whatnot, where Rom is not a good Ferengi.
No.
Rom is a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of going, they don't always need to tally. And the wonderful thing that Star Trek does is it goes like, hey, the values of this race aren't the same as the values of this race, and that's okay. Rather than it being like, oh, this race just wants to kill him. Like in Lord of the Rings, where you just go, oh well, I guess all Mordor people are evil then. Why are they evil? They just are. Okay. And it's that kind of weird thing of going, when it's black and white, it's not as much fun.
This is a reference to something I have never seen. Continue.
No, I wasn't talking about Virginias. Horrible nerdy jokes.
Vulvas! But we...
Vulvas!
It's very Japanese, isn't it?
Don't like
vulva! But we...
Watashi wa vulva desu! Nani?
Nani?
Pitoris nani?
When I was like, when we get a really decent shop, the t-shirts that are going to be made, just good clitoris nanny.
What? Clitoris? I'm sorry, anyone listening to this. We have had a long, long day. We've killed goodwill.
Oh my god. Hashtag clitoris nanny. I'm trying to find, where is it?
It's the Mary Poppins spin-off we never thought we needed.
Oh my god, I need that. I need the snatch, the snatch cometh sticker and just saying clitoris nanny and you as a divine being.
If you order something from the new Velvet Snatch store, you might get a sticker in the package.
I'm gonna do a scene next week where it's just like QVC and it's just gonna be you in a box and it's just gonna be QVC labels and it's just gonna be Synoiz stuff on a lazy Susan. But yeah, so they need to get Captain Jahil off his ship before it explodes, and they need to find what they need to do. They can jettison the ship, but they can't beam him over. So Odo puts Quark in charge of ops, whilst Odo goes down to the docking ring to save Captain Jahil.
Yeah.
And it's like,
but he doesn't just go down. It's hilarious because it's like literally, Odo realizes to get there in time he has to be beamed there.
Yeah.
And Quark's like, "Don't worry, I can use the transporter," and then sort of starts locking onto Odo, and Quark's just like, "Oh, I'm sure I've seen this done before." And Odo, just panic Odo, and Odo's like, "What? You mean you've never done it?" And Quark's like, "I think I've got it. Energize." And it's a beautiful thing. It's like Quark just being like, "Energize," and like the look of panic on Odo's face, and it's just the rapport between them is absolute perfection. And obviously, Quark knows exactly what he's doing, and he teleports Odo down. And there's a scene in between, but basically we have it where Odo does manage to get the docking clamps off. And I love this about this. Like, this is one of my favorite bits of the episode, is that we get to see the internals of the ship, where we get to see that the actual docking clamps are these massive piston type things like in the wall. So he basically takes the cover off and then pulls the thing up. And I don't know, there's something satisfying about this physicality to
it's very analog, the station, because it's not Federation tech, it's not digitized. Everything that, like, the large workings of the station are heavily mechanical because, and this is genius, because they are more difficult to tamper with. Wherein, if you look at you
could hack a terminal.
You can hack a terminal. You can reprogram a computer. Where the Cardassians, very cleverly for Cardassians, go, this is going to be a station above Bajor, built by Bajorans, and will be largely populated by Bajorans. So we need to have it where there is no way to circumnavigate a system because the system is physical. It is hydraulic. It is something that cannot quickly be done. So they could say, they could override the system. Like, they could override a digital system, say like the docking clamps, that could overload the thing. However, there is a physical override bypassing the digital need, and that's what's brilliant about this station. I compare this a lot to the reimagined Battlestar Galactica, where it was like, you've got these newer Battlestars and ships where everything is digital, everything is networked, but you see very quickly that can be hacked, that can be infected, that can be shut down. And then you see the older, heavier, very dumbed down Battlestars where everything is on cords, nothing is networked, like everything is very analog, because it's harder to disable a ship that is not connected to everything else.
And this is the wonderful thing, though, the fact of like the designers of DS9 thought about all of this, and I just think it's absolutely wonderful. So that is one of my favorite bits of the episode, of just seeing Odo undo these clamps manually, and then he manages to open the airlock. The captain stumbles out, I don't know how I feel about him surviving. I kind of feel like he probably should have died for being an idiot. But he basically stumbles out, everything's on fire, and then Odo sends the signal to Quark to say, right, we can jettison the ship now.
Yeah.
And then basically the ship goes off into space just far enough, and then it explodes. It still rocks DS9, and I don't know how I feel about that because
Space melons.
that's not how space works.
Space
As
melons.
in
It's all the space melons
space
hitting it.
melons.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's the space
right.
melons hitting the ship. But we see Kira return, request permission to land, and it's only Quark.
Yeah, and she's like, "What the hell? What are you doing in
yeah.
ops?"
But some Cermak, what's his surname again? Cermak. I got it written
Cermak
down.
Ren.
Cermak Ren. So the better of the Ren siblings, the one that wasn't an emo.
Well, no, Cermak is his surname, isn't it? Oh, well, how do Bajoran names work again?
Yes,
Yeah.
Kira Nerys.
Yeah, so his family name is Cermak and he is Ren, yeah.
The first name is last. But he quickly takes a look at Dr. Bashir's research, becomes suddenly aware that I remember this. I remember the doctor's researching about this. I should be able to develop an antidote. And he's like,
Yeah, well, what we have is when he sits down and he starts looking at stuff, then Kira gets infected by the virus and starts talking nonsense. And the doctor's just like, okay, you just sit down here. I'm going to do some work. And then obviously he looks at it after a while and he's like, okay, I can see what the doctor's done here. Okay, that's very clever. It's this kind of thing and it's this kind of like virus and whatnot. And okay, cool. I think I can actually work with this. And we don't know if he actually yeah, because you're implying that actually he was involved and he was just lying about it. But I kind of feel that as it's his field of research, he's looking at it being like, okay, cool, I can see the sort of thing that this is doing. Because I get that in my work where you can look at someone else's work and be like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, I get what you're doing here. Well, sometimes, not lately, it's been a nightmare. But I've had a right struggle. I've had to like message people who left the company like 5 years ago, being like, "What the hell is this?" Like, what did you actually mean with this?
I'm actually impressed that people at your job do work. I am teetering close tonight.
It's because it's not a government agency. It's not anything run by the council, basically.
Yes, fuck the Tories. But we see that everything starts to return to normal, and I think this is for the early episodes of DS9, they do this quite a lot, where it's like the epilogue is just everything is returning to normal, or everything is beginning to return to normal. It's repeated a few times in the early episodes, but we forgive it because it's still trying to find its feet.
I think it's the idea of like this is the thing we talk about. Like obviously my complaints for the motion picture is that you saw everything even if you didn't need to see everything.
Yeah.
And the DS9 very much kind of goes, that's not important. We skimmed over that because you can guess what happened. And effectively kind of goes, okay, so we made a cure and we applied it to everyone and everyone was cured. But we didn't need to show you that because you can guess what that was like, and it and it does that. But there are a lot of episodes where it just goes, oh, we got literally, because I remember like because it took me like 2 hours to watch this episode because I've been doing so many other things and having to respond to messages and stuff. And so I paused it and it literally just like the virus, the antidote isn't even made yet. And it just says, there's 3 minutes left in this episode. And I'm like, well, they better sort it quickly.
Yeah.
And then you press play and he's like, oh, I think I should be able to make a cure from this. And then the next scene is like, we've applied it to everyone and everyone's fine. And you're like, that was a quick tidy up.
I think we both finished at the same time. Because I was like getting set up for the recording and I was getting ready and I'm like, something's missing. And then I realised I have no light, I have no webcam, I have no microphone, I have no sparking lights, I have nothing. I was like, And then I realised I had everything packed from the weekend when I did a top secret show that I can't discuss yet. And I'm just like, oh shit.
But so I had to keep mentioning.
No, this is
a top secret show. You mention it a lot.
But this is another top secret show that I can't discuss. But I'll promote the other one later because I'm shallow and I'm in business for myself. But we see that it doesn't. They don't need to explain it. It's one captain's log. Everything's returning to normal. But I don't like the way this episode ends.
Oh, really?
Because it essentially, it's Cisco ordering a coffee or a Ractagino or whatever, and the coffee's shit, and he just starts yelling at Chief again. And I'm just like, give Miles a break.
I like it as a gimmick because it's the idea of basically like O'Brien has just gone through this horrible thing. He was patient zero for this virus. He was on the brink of death. And then basically, as soon as everything's back to normal, Cisco's like, the replicator's fucked. Fix it, you know? And it is just like going,
girl, you have got to leave him.
Yeah, that's it. Union. But I mean, he was a union man. Fuck the Tories. But it's exactly that, though. It's like, but I quite like it. I quite like it as a fun bit because trade union, football, sausage crust, and alcohol committee. That's an interesting mix.
I don't like football, but I will have a drink. Anyway, go on.
But yeah, and I think it's fun because there's a wonderful rapport between the characters where, yes, O'Brien is overworked, and yes, O'Brien is the reason why any of them are, like, surviving on this station. But it's the fact of he is loved by them. Like, and this is the weird thing. It's the fact of, like, he isn't an official officer. Or, like you're saying, all of his stuff is like field promotions and whatnot. And yet he is rated higher than anyone. Like, he is at the top of the food chain at the station, purely based upon respect for who he is and what he does.
He is a prime example, right? He is a prime example of academia versus apprenticeship, real world learning.
Yeah.
Whereas you will have engineers who will go through 3 years of Starfleet Academy, constant training, constant theoretical writing papers and everything like that. And then you get guys like Miles O'Brien who will go out at the 24th century equivalent of an apprenticeship, learn on the job, and then get to where he is at the same level as Geordie LaForge without a rank. Because let's be honest, right, between Geordie LaForge and Miles O'Brien has more respect and has more to do because he has an entire alien space station to maintain. Whereas Geordie LaForge can be comforted in the fact that this is Federation tech, this is all Starfleet. I don't have to worry about upgrades because I can just go to the nearest starbase, plug in the Enterprise D via a USB-C and do an update. Whereas, you know, and like engine improvements, it's all Starfleet spec. This Miles O'Brien is essentially the guy that owns a Porsche, but is that mad he puts a Ferrari engine into it and it just works. He creates the bastard Frankenstein of cars, but it works. And this is what he does. He has the job, the unenviable task to be at the frontier of Federation space, where he's like, the nearest starship is like weeks away at some point, and he has to make do with what he deals with and make two completely different alien systems work. And he does it.
Yeah.
And that is why we all think he is the greatest Starfleet officer. Well, he's not even a Starfleet officer. He's a...
But that's it. And it's just how wonderful he is. And this first series of DS9, we get to see how much he has to struggle with stuff. How he's like, hey, how does this work? Like, there's a wonderful episode later on in season 1 where it's where there's like, isn't it a virus? And he has to kind of... Yeah, it's wonderful. And he has to make like a pen for it. And, and he's basically... Yeah. But it's him trying to get the computer to work with stuff because you know what it's like. It's like if you've ever done code, if you've ever tried to get new technology working with old technology, and it just goes, oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't do this. And then you make one step in the right direction, and then it goes, cool, I did that. I can't do this next bit. And you go, and it's wonderful seeing O'Brien go through that, and he's a treasure.
This is the thing. His brief career. So he's a chief petty officer. He is non-commissioned, and he literally did what I've just referenced there. At the age of 17, he joined Starfleet as an enlisted crewman, where he attended engineering school. Quite literally, Miles O'Brien joins Starfleet as an apprentice.
Yeah.
And it shows where, it shows that there is benefits in both academia training and learning on the job, and there are merits to both. And when you compare LaForge and Miles O'Brien, they both got their strengths, they've both got their weaknesses, but Miles O'Brien is sort of like gone the way of, why should I go to Starfleet Academy when I can learn on the job? And he is being able, and it's the beauty. It is the absolute beauty. We don't have this in modern day England because of some random event that happened 14 years ago. But it's that thing of, you can go either which way, and both of them can be rewarding in their own unique way. And this shows that not every person in Starfleet has to go 3-4 years at Starfleet Academy, be an ensign, work his way up, where he could just enlist and then just be like, I want to learn about engineering and go to engineering school and do this. And then we see right at the end where he's like working at Starfleet Academy as an engineering professor. Yeah. So it's a wonderful way to like encourage people like to say, it's a lovely way to basically say to the real world people, you don't have to go to college, you don't have to go to university, you can go into these military services and learn, you can go into an apprenticeship and learn a skill, and you may gain knowledge and gain a better future than if you went through academia, because academia may not be your strength.
Yeah.
And this is where we see Miles O'Brien, where it's academia is not his strength, but learning on the job and actually just rolling the sleeves up and getting on with it is his strength. And that is why he was assigned to DS9, because it's sort of like, he is a dude that will just get on with the job, and he will, because he said it in another episode of DS9 where someone said like, do you miss the it was with Worf, and when Worf came on, and he was like, I loved being on the Enterprise, but here there's a different challenge every day. No 2 days are the same. There's always something to do and to keep busy.
That's what he lives for. He is. Yeah. It's like he's referred to by Mirror Universe Kira. He's a tinkerer. That is what he does, and I love that they developed his character in this way and made him like, I don't know, probably my favorite Star Trek engineer.
Yeah,
and. That is high praise, considering we have Geordie LaForge, we have like
But when you look at the engineers, right? We look at Geordie LaForge, fails with women, shall we say, problematic in certain instances. Hashtag holographic.
Are we going to say that O'Brien succeeded with women?
Well, no. Hear me out. He's more well-rounded. I mean, Scotty Scotty was never fleshed out. Personally, I mean, Strange New Worlds are going to start doing it. That's fine. Trip Tucker in Enterprise, I would say it was getting there. And then B'Elanna Torres, again, after Miles O'Brien, but started to be more fleshed out. O'Brien was like the precedent for like these characters, these like sub-characters of the entourage being fully explored and fully fleshed out, to the point where we saw him with his stories where there weren't engineering stories, they were family issues. He became a god. There was other things, like when he was in prison for 1,000 years in his mind.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Like, he becomes such a well-rounded and fleshed out character, but he's still an engineering genius. And we always say he's the greatest Starfleet officer of all time, because Lower Decks, way off into the future, we see this massive statue of Miles O'Brien where they say he was the greatest officer of all time.
Well, it's this idea of like, Miles O'Brien has everything. Like, Miles O'Brien is basically this engineering whiz, this hard worker, this dedicated family man, and a warrior. Like, we basically...
Let's not forget.
He was in the Cardassian War. Like, it's...
Let's not forget, he was a Union man.
Yeah, exactly. And a Union man. And it's this idea of going, whoa, I don't think... like Data's never been in a war and stuff like that. And while he's amazing at all this stuff, it's the fact of like O'Brien does it all seamlessly. And the only mistake he's ever made is called Keiko. And but I'll never give up.
Yeah, neither will I. But all in all, I think Babel was one of the very first solid episodes, if not the first solid episode of Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Because Emissary, we both agree with Emissary that although it was an alright pilot, it wasn't one of the best.
Well, Emissary is let down by the fact that Cisco didn't know how he wanted to do the character yet. So
Yeah.
Cisco is a very I don't like Cisco in Emissary. Uh Odo, they hadn't quite got the makeup right and he looks a bit
No.
weird. Like he's still a bit weird here, but he's not as he looks weird in the first two episodes in Emissary. And
So does Quark a little bit
yeah,
as well.
that's the thing. It's like I think everyone here has kind of gone, oh, I know what I'm doing now, and the writers have gone, hey, okay, cool, we've got to do this,
Yeah.
and like every character gets to shine in this episode, no matter how long they're on screen, and I absolutely love it. But one thing I do want to mention though is the parallels, and this was obviously done in like 92, 93.
The 1993. No,
No,
sorry. These were filmed in late 1992.
okay, yeah, around then. And obviously, we see a lot of parallels to what happened during COVID, where you had a lot of people who are like, well, this is the problem with like, where the way that the captain works in this one, he's a dick, basically, like, and he's very much out for himself, and he's kind of going, hey, look, I'm fine, so I'm just going to go away. And that was the problem with COVID. We had all these
Mhm.
people who were basically going, oh, well, I've got no symptoms. That must mean I'm fine and I can't spread it. So I'll just go off and do all this stuff. And it's like, great, that's how loads of people got infected. Because
Yeah.
the horror is that symptoms don't symptoms often don't develop until you've actually sort of had it for a while and
Yeah.
been able to spread it for a while. And obviously people are like, oh well, how, that's nonsense. And it's like, well, no, but it's that whole fear thing. That was the problem with COVID. It was the fact of you had people who were scared about having their freedom reduced. So they went, hey, I don't want to, I'm scared of having my freedoms like curtailed. So I'm not going to do what I'm told. And I'm going to question the science because it doesn't give me what I want.
Yeah.
And it's not that they actually disbelieved science. They willingly went, hey, I'm going to ignore that because I think it's lies because it's not saying what I wanted to say. And that's exactly what the captain does in this one, where he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh well, I don't want that. I don't want that." And and it was because I knew so many people during the pandemic who were basically like, "Hey, just stay indoors. Don't worry about the other stuff. I know your business is going to shit, but this is a worldwide thing with massive consequences and stuff. Just stay still, and we will work this out."
Yeah.
And then you get people going, "Nope, I'm going to keep doing what I do," and you're like, and that's why it went on so long because you had
Yeah.
people going, I'm an essential worker. Oh, but I have a condition that means I don't need to do anything. I don't need to wear a mask. And obviously, I don't want to, anyone who's listening who, COVID was awful.
Yeah.
COVID was absolutely awful. And the situation we were put in was absolutely awful. And the having to wear masks and all of that lot was like very frustrating. But at the end of the day, they were just masks.
Yeah.
And you were just told to stay in your house.
Yeah.
And I personally go like, why is that the end of freedom? Like, that, what the end of freedom is when
Yeah.
essentially we're looking at the world now being like, wow, we have a lot more freedoms to lose than that. Great. Let's see
Mm-hmm.
how the new government do.
Mm-hmm. Any other notes that you want to bring up?
Keiko wasn't in this. It was great. I will say, actually, one thing I really want to mention that's a tiny, tiny thing. When we see Quark playing Dabo
Yeah.
by himself in Quarks, it is the cleanest version of the Dabo sound. So it is where everyone samples the
Yeah.
Dabo sound from, because you never ever hear it again in Trek without there being background noise or talking or anything. And it's basically the sound effect. If you search for Dabo sound effects, it's always this one where it slightly cuts off at the beginning because the scene starts. And it's just, yeah, that was my little random tidbit. But
It's
no,
yeah.
I adored this episode.
It's DS9.
Hmm.
It's DS9. We both love this series deeply, and I just I am. I have no words.
Hmm.
It is the first episode I would say of the first season where everything started to find its feet. and every character was starting to get fleshed out just that little bit more. That where we got it was how we knew the characters from the rest of the series.
The great thing about this episode is like with a lot of Trek, we talk about sort of what episode would you give a person to get them into a particular series.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. Like TNG, you can give a lot of episodes, but you might not give a series 1 or 2. You'd probably do episode 3 and then be like, here's a later episode because it doesn't change up too much, and then you can work your way back.
You could sort of say start of season 3 and then ignore the first 2 seasons and then just start at season 3. You don't miss, not much is missed, and you can just be established with everything else as you go along.
Yeah, if you wanted to sell Voyager to someone, you'd probably pick something that's like one where the Doctor's fully developed and it has 7 of 9 in, and then you kind of work back. But with DS9, the 2 episodes that I give to people to go, hey, get into DS9, are from season 1. And that's Duet, which is one of the greatest episodes of Trek ever, and Babel, because you can kind of assume all of the relations from what you see in this, and you kind of go, oh, I don't know who these characters are, but I get enough in this episode to know who they are. And it's great, like to have an episode so early that's the epitome of what your show is wonderful.
Yeah, it is fantastic. That has been our review of DS9 Season 1, Episode 5, Babel. However, we are receiving Science Officer Synoiz an upcoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
Miles?
Oh, we've got Marjorie Brett on there. I didn't realize we had the actual voice.
Hell yes, we do. Did you not know that?
No, because I don't often get to actually hear it.
Did you hear that?
I don't. Yeah, I heard it there, but it must have been from your headphones.
It was from my headphones.
Because I don't hear when we're playing sounds on the OBS, I don't actually hear it. So
yes, we
do
behind
the scenes here.
Michelle Roddenberry, the computer voice of every LCARS system from the next generation onwards. Welcome everybody to the Double Wheel of Episodes. If this is your first time watching Trekkin Up North, congratulations on starting on episode 67. Wait until you get to episode 69, where we're both reversed. In this wheel right here is every
and horizontal.
Oh my!
Can we be horizontal during that episode?
Yeah, I'll pitch the cameras that way. Hang on, I'll just do like, welcome everybody.
Hello.
Hello. This is the Double Wheel of Episodes. Within it, it's contained every episode asterisk of Star Trek in existence, programmed into its delicious dabbleness. And what we do every week, we ask our special guest, and Synoiz and myself, what we want to see next week. For whatever the Double Wheel lands on, we must review. Every week I ask the same question, and every week he gives me the same answer. And I'm almost wanting it now, just so he has nothing else to give me. But Science Officer Synoiz, what do you want to see us review?
Well, the problem is, I didn't actually realize that last week we were joking about it. Because obviously the episode that I want, the episode that the audience wants, you're the odd one out here. We want Code of Honor from TNG.
God.
But here's the thing. I had a serious answer that I was going to say this week, which is that I really want to do the Drumhead from TNG.
Oh,
which is one of the best courtroom. Obviously, we love a courtroom episode of Trek, and the Drumhead is incredible. The Drumhead is so good. However, we've taken TNG out of the Double Wheel, haven't we? So there is no risk of Code of Honor. There is no risk of the Drumhead. So yeah, we're gonna, until the next movie, we've taken TNG out. But then we will be back with the TNG and the animated series, so it should be quite interesting.
We will also be reviewing season 2 of Star Trek Prodigy very soon. There are 20 episodes to get through, and we don't have time. So it's
I don't know if I can physically do it, I'm literally at a festival this weekend. I get back on like Sunday night.
I
And
think
then
we'll
I've
probably
got
do
a
it.
show
We'll
next
probably do it in
weekend.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Half cut on tequila in a hotel room.
We'll
and
just
going,
have a laptop being like, we've
Yeah.
got 5 more episodes to get through.
Why is Janeway CGI? The fucking doctor. But yes.
But
so,
episode-wise, I would say duet. I know we've just done DS9, but I would love to talk about duet.
as spinach margarita pizza. As I
You've
have
got the
mentioned-
asphasia virus.
I had, yeah. As I mentioned last week, I am still gunning for one of the augment episodes from season 4 of Enterprise. I love Enterprise, as everyone knows, so I am hoping for that. As ever, chat, commenters, viewers, when the Dabble wheel lands on the episode, we all have to yell at the top of our lungs, Dabble! And you all have to comment Dabble. You all have to mention Dabble in the chat. You need to tag us on the Nerdy Up North community yelling Dabble. You need to send me a text message saying Dabble. You need to, I just realised, Dabble. You need to yes, you all need to tag me, message me, send me pigeons through my window saying Dabble. That is the rule. Are you ready, Synoiz, for me to spin this?
I'm ready.
Bring on the anxiety in 3, 2, 1. Oh,
that was a lot of
Double!
You got
Yes!
an Enterprise one.
I've got
Is
an
it
Enterprise
season
one.
4 though.
Fusion. It
Double.
is Star Trek Enterprise, Episode 1. Season 1, Episode 17, Fusion.
Oh, I must have seen this recently because I did rewatch Enterprise recently.
It's got the good theme tune. The crew of Enterprise meet a group of outcast Vulcans who embrace their own emotions, leading to trouble for T'Pol.
Yes, I remember this.
This is a good episode to explore because there are some problematic references in this to, that we've also already covered in the Undiscovered Country review, which if you didn't see last week, I know it was
3 hours long.
I know it was 3 hours long, but it's also one of the highest viewed episodes of Trekking Up North. So
hold on. Are you suggesting
I am not
that YouTube
even
is
joking.
saying that we're not talking enough?
We're not
Is that
long
what we're
enough.
saying?
We are not long enough. Okay. So
Are we not as long as Alohan Executor? Is that what we're saying?
It's only been up. It's only been up for 4 days, and it has accrued 172 views thus far. So it's up there. I blame David, but yes, this is going to be fantastic for next week. Star Trek Enterprise. I get to sing the theme tune again. So yes, computer, take us back to the 2-screen, please. Ha ha ha, mouse click. But yes, that has been our review of DS9's episode Babel. Next week we've got Star Trek Enterprise Season 1, Episode 17, Fusion. Synoiz, do you have anything to plug for the following week?
Well, there's phrasing. I would like to plug many things this following week, but I don't think
Lee.
it's available. But no, I just want to say if you want to support me, we have the Nerdy Up North quiz, which is on the 13th of July. So it's after the next episode, but you can definitely put in your diary now. And the other thing is that I have launched my Velvet Snatch merch store today, where you can order t-shirts and other fancy things. So yeah, go to store.thevelvetsnatch.com to see if there's anything you fancy. All profits from it go directly to charities, Pride Action North and the Charlie and Carter Foundation. There you go.
The Velvet Snatch. It is absolutely wonderful. Get the merch while you can, and let us not forget that we, I will be on. You recently,
Yes.
you man, you were on the radio
No,
recently.
radio.
Where were you on the radio? Je t'allons.
Le
Go on.
sausage.
Explain yourself.
Yeah, I was on the radio talking about my mixed drag campaign, and I spoke to the wonderful Emma Millen at BBC Radio Newcastle. You can listen to it back online. I don't know where, but I'm going to put a link on my website, thevelvetsnatch.com, so you can listen to it there.
Thevelvetsnatch.com.
It was great though, because we got to talk about my history of drag, how I got
Yeah.
into drag, and then basically we get to talk a bit about the importance of pride and whatnot. It's really annoying though, because like I mentioned Nerdy Up North a lot, but it was all surrounding like that, oh, we're going to do this nerdy quiz. And then because it actually got aired after the quiz had happened, they just cut all of it out, and I was like, oh shit. So Nerdy Up North only gets mentioned a couple of times, sadly.
That is fine, because on the 22nd of July, it is my turn to enter yet again. It's been a long time coming, BBC, but I have returned. I'm back, baby, and this time they can't pay me. I am back at BBC Newcastle. God, it's going to be so weird. Because I used to work there, fun fact. But
Yeah.
I am back at BBC Radio Newcastle, which is also going to be broadcast on Radio Tees, promoting Trekking Up North, attending Destination Trek in Blackpool on the 28th of July, because we've got our own live podcast at 11 a.m. on Sunday the 28th of July at Destination Trek in Blackpool. So I am promoting that.
They do not know what's coming. They do not know what's coming.
Oh, they do. And that's why I'm worried. Here is a muzzle. Go on stage and shut up. And then we are both in Las Vegas for STLV, the world's largest Star Trek convention, with a whole host of wonderful podcasts. We have Captain's Quadrant attending, Clone Star podcast attending, Trek Culture podcast and Trek Culture themselves with the delectable Jean-Philippe. And I'm sorry, I'm just coughing up. And we have got...
Hold on, why does Sean Ferrick remind you of throat problems?
Yes. OnlyFans. But we see we've got
Things that we're going to be doing things, and it's going to be exciting.
I'm having a Nigel hemorrhage. But we have got a lot happening. Nerdy Up North has also got a lot happening. We've got the second Nerdy Up North quiz. We've got the podcast that happens every Sunday at 8 p.m. We've got Monsters Up North that happens every Monday at 8 p.m. We've got the Gaming Up North Ramblecast that happens every Wednesday, i.e. now. We have got Gigs Up North. We have got Tunes Up North on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. We have got North Up North. We've got South Up North. We've got South Up North. We've got North Up South. We are everywhere. We are like an infection. Pretty soon we'll all start.
We're like a Babel infection. Yeah.
We're like Babel, but northern.
We have everything. So I would definitely recommend, if you're listening to this on Spotify, listen to our other podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're tuning in live, please check out our other podcasts, because we have so many amazing things. There's definitely even more for you out there.
We absolutely do. Don't forget to click on all the links in the description below. We've got our lovely friends of the show. We've got JL Saw You. We've got Adam, who does the music for Trekking Up North. We have just got so many wonderful friends that we have met through doing this, and we will forever be grateful for everything that they do to us and all the gifts that they give us. And rest assured, guys, you are all going to be spammed to the eyeballs with gifts when we see you all in person. But yeah, that has been Trekking Up North for this week. We will see you same time, same location next week on the Nerdy Up North YouTube channel. But until then, my lovelies, take care of each other, stay safe, live long and prosper, and as ever, Miles?
Roll lingering life? What? Simple hesitation!